My name is Naftal Nyabuto, the Group CEO of Mzawadi Group. And what we do as Mzawadi Group is basically we manage a number of brands, which are basically tech brands, and tackling different industries in Africa. Just to mention some of our brands, one is Mzawadi Loyalty, which has transformed service industry loyalty programs or incentives, which manufacturing, banking, insurance, and retail has been able to use in order to create push sales and incentivize customers. We have also launched a big brand, which is basically called Soko Jumla. Transforming route to market is a big thing in Africa because manufacturers struggle to streamline route to market and they need solutions like Soko Jumla to be able to do that. And one of the things we have also seen in Africa, because of the segmented markets in Africa, is to be able to look at how we can create ecosystems which can end up being an incentive for most of these companies which want to do gifting, vouchers, and be able to create universal voucher system which companies can be able to use across Africa. And that's why we launched Mzawadi and what we call Mzawadi Global, which is basically a card based of Mzawadi. And just to mention, we have recently launched a big product of AI called wakili.org. This is one of the transformative products that has disrupted the legal space in Africa. Basically looking for solutions on how access to justice is big in Africa and how we can be able to transform and democratize legal access using AI. It's one of the things I can proudly say within a very short time we have been able to do almost 40,000 consultations within 2 months. This is an amazing solution for Africa. And just to mention also a little bit of other solutions we have been able to do in Africa, we have transformed how manufacturers can be able to do advertising and coupons using the latest technologies of digital to reduce cost, because African markets need reduction of cost. So these are some of the solutions that we have done in order to ensure that Africa is able to get solutions meant for Africa. Now to come to the topic of the day, how do you build sustainable startups? I can proudly say we have been able to run a startup for the last 6-7 years, and we have not been able to get any external investment or debt financing. And this is possible because that is the reason why I'm speaking here. There are a lot of startups, for example, if you talk about tech startups, the dependence level of investment is amazing. Look at this. In Africa, the last 1 year, let's example 2023, the investment in tech startups is about $2.3 billion. And if you look at the countries which have been the biggest beneficiaries of this, starting from Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya, you realize that most of these tech startups are basically being able to grow simply because of majorly funding, external funding. What happens to those other startups which are locally defined and they are not able to access external funding? What if they don't have the resources to even get debt financing from the financial institutions? What happens? They'll become a statistic. They'll become as part of the startups, which 80% of them after the 5th year are dying. So how do you make these startups sustainable? Isn't it possible that we can be able to actually bring our startups, make them sustainable, make them profitable, and make them grow across Africa without generally depending? Meaning at the time which you could have gotten the funding, you are basically scaling up. And that is why I think we underestimate the power of bootstrapping. This can be a word that most of the startups are taught and they are told about bootstrapping, but it's not an easy thing. You just ask questions, how do you bootstrap? Until you are able to reach a stage whereby you can say, I'm going to scale. Take an example. I get an idea. We are just 2 of us are co-founders. We are supposed to be starting to scale up. We need employees. We need staff basically. We need rental. We need to make sure that we can be able to advertise. You don't have any external funding. So what do you do? I can be able to give a personal example of what we have been able to achieve here, because that can become a lesson to a lot of startups. The first thing that we have been able to do in ensuring bootstrapping makes sense is having a lean approach towards creating a sustainable startup. Lean approach means that you build small partnerships within your company, meaning the first employees you create who have different skills, you ensure you only start with 2 major skills. Don't start with accountants. Don't start with administrative staff. We started with people who will bring us business. We have the tech guys who will just make sure that the system is working, and you have the sales team who are making sure they get the business. That's the starting point. It can be only one salesperson. The second thing which I've learned over time, you as a founder, you need to know how to sell. If you stay in your home or stay in the office waiting for the sales not going to come, as a founder, you need to be out there, hit the road and sell. Because then you could have reduced the cost of employing or getting people to start selling. That's the first thing that we did here. The second part that was very key is leverage on partnerships. People don't know the power of partnerships. Sometimes it takes a lot of staff to be able to bring business, but sometimes you need to ensure that you can get other companies that you can leverage on each other's powers. For example, let me give an example. You get an agency that is basically has a relationship with some of these FMCGs, for example. This agency is looking for business. But at the same time, you as a solution company, you have the systems. The agency does not have the systems. So work with them and tell them, I'll build systems for you. You sell it to your clients. Give me the commission or give me the cut. What you have done is that you are leveraging on the people who already have a network to help you scale. Number three, and what is very key in that partnership sometimes is very key. Sometimes once a startup goes to the field, the first question you are always asking for the corporate, for example, us who are big corporates and trying to get businesses, who is your client? Imagine you are starting up, you don't have an already existing client, and somebody else is asking you, who is your client? It is the reason being is that people don't want to associate themselves with somebody who is experimenting or somebody they are not very sure if it's going to perform. And what will help you there is people, you need to create a network or an ecosystem of partners who might not actually be giving you any money, but the power of association helps you make people comfortable. Because if you come to me and you tell me I'm associated or I'm a partner of X other company, people will feel like they're in safe hands. That is what we call, that is the first perspective, because a lot of startups struggle. Why do they collapse in the first year or second year? They can't sustain employees, they can't sustain rent. Meaning, for the first year of your work, you need to have sustained, you need to have started bringing in income. You might not be profitable, but at least you have something that's sustaining your bills. One of our things that is very important and is very important to this is that if you don't get the right type of human resource, most of the startups, they go for the most experienced ones. They can't sustain them. Then you go to most inexperienced staff, which you can sustain. Again, you can't sustain them simply because you can't empower them. You don't have enough skills. You don't know how to build them. So it becomes a catch-22. How will you be able to do it? I always say, leverage on the power of young people who have the right attitude, who are ready to work, to learn, and then the moment you have given them the promise and you keep it, that the moment they start generating revenue, they become staff and employees. They buy into the vision, they buy into the aspiration of the company. That's why we say every founder, the first thing that you only have to sell your vision. Inspire the team, motivate them. People don't want to work where they don't know why they are working. They'll become robots. Tomorrow they don't have enough money, what will they do? They'll give up. They don't have transport to go out for sales. They'll give us and look for alternatives. But when you give people the higher vision, you give them the why they are looking and working for you, then they'll be able to aspire. And I will encourage founders, don't be so selfish in having 100% of the cake. Because the moment you do that, you are alone. But the moment I'm ensure 2, 3, 4 people who are very skilled have come into me, and I can be able to give them 2, 3, 5% here of the share. And it's important because then they become part of the company. They own it. They'll go out there and sell it as theirs. And reward those people who started with you. When you do that, people will build a lot of confidence. And I think one of the things I've also seen that is not, I've seen a lot of companies collapsing, mostly tech startups. And what I usually see, and they are doing mistakes, is because they start chasing financing. Every day they wake up, they are writing proposals for financing. They are trying to get the next financier. So they chase it. It comes a goose chase. And you know what? It diverts your attention. Simply because you are writing a lot of proposals, you are doing a lot of pitch decks, you are looking for financiers, and they are not coming faster. You know what happens? You forget the sales, you forget you know how to sell. You forget that you need to survive. So for us, for example, we never even look for financing. We said, let's survive with the shilling that we have. Until we are able to sustain ourselves, a financier will come. Even up to this level. Now they are coming. We are not ready. Why? Because we now, it's our terms. We are profitable. We know what you're doing. And that, for me, is a best example of how you can be able to build a startup. Now, you have built it. How do you sustain it? The biggest mistake in a lot of startups I see in Africa is that once they start getting money, they want to get big. Big offices. They want to drive bigger cars. They want to become a corporatized. They want to become a corporate before they become a corporate. They want to give all sorts of things that a corporate does. And that is the biggest mistake, because sustainability is not built on spending. Sustainability is built on the resources you have. The moment you realize that you can't manage, you can't be able to say in the next 1 year without any business I can survive, then you are on a red line. Because you need to be sure that even if things go down, I can be able to survive. I'll give one example. During Corona, a lot of companies scaled down. We didn't scale down. We didn't touch any staff. Our staff said, this is our company, we have to sustain it during Corona. And they all worked and we said, no, we can't let anybody go. We survive on the resources we had already kept. And you see, that is what makes people work. People work for organizations that they feel it takes care of them. Not organizations whereby if any income goes lower, the following day you are starting the sacking game. People become insecure. When employees become insecure, what happens? They are looking for opportunities. And in any sense, as a startup, you don't have enough money to sustain employees. So you don't need, it's not the money that will keep them around. It's the vision. So the moment you don't give them the comfort, then you lose it. I can be able to say from experience that we have, our turnover level for the last almost 7 to 8 years has only been around 10%. We're not a big startups. We are not the guys who are the best in the field. Why? Because people who work for us are believing and they know exactly where the vision takes them. And that is why I'm proudly saying that sustainable startups can only be created when the employees and the staff who work for you become partners of the company. They become part of it. They buy the vision into it. Then you avoid the problem of turnover. In tech startups, it becomes more tricky. The moment you have programmers and developers moving out, in and out, do you know how difficult it is to replace developers? Because you get a developer who is coming new, you have to start afresh, you have to start managing problems when it comes to debugging and all those kind of things. So how do you sustain it? Your clients are on your neck, then what will happen? You will end up losing clients simply because your turnover is high. So that is what it means. So getting there, you have got even the companies which have been actually financed, they are not able to sustain themselves sometimes. The reason is they also go big. You have seen them collapsing left and right. They have been funded, big funding, they don't sustain. Why? Because they think money is equal to corporatizing, spending. You have $1 million, you have $2 million, and the only thing that you do next is get the most expensive stuff into the market, bring them in, pay them well, and you see that for me does not equate to business. I can spend the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, be able to have a different organic growth that can be able to make the foundation of a company clear. And one of the things I can say, my book, which I've one of the best selling in Amazon, called Spider Web Economy. In Spider Web Economy, I said that I came up with a strategy which is called Spider Web. Collaboration is the new innovation. The strategy was clear that we no longer need to use the textbook kind of strategies to manage companies. I used the example of a spider. That is how the book is built on. That the spider does not go hunting. The spider builds the web. Once it builds the web is able to trap the insects. So the spider saves the energy from the hunting to the eating of the prey. So companies who want to sustain themselves, the organic growth becomes the foundation. If you haven't built the web, you'll continue chasing clients. And the moment you continue chasing clients, what you'll do, you'll continue using more resources. So when resources go lower, what happens? You don't get clients. And when you don't get clients, what happens? The company starts collapsing. But when you build the web, what usually happens is that you'll continue having the prey and you'll continue expanding the web. So our work as Mzawadi Group has always been building the web. And let me tell you, we have built the biggest ecosystem in Africa in terms of partnerships. These are the people who feed us. These are the people who have made us sustainable. These are the partners that make us who we are. So any startup you want to be, which wants to succeed and become sustainable, there's a lot to do, but I summarize it in this way. Work within your resources. That's number one key thing. Number two, get the right people around yourself and the team that build a team that is clear. Define the vision very well. Manage your costs. Build ecosystems. Work with partners. and you'll become a sustainable startup. If I may predict the 2024, first, the funding level of tech startups is going to go higher simply because of AI. The funding level of AI globally has increased in billions of dollars, meaning more investors are going to pump in money in AI. You're going to see a lot of tech startups going into AI. We are going to see a lot of funding going to fintech. So fintech is going to be in the top in terms of the funding levels. But I'm also predicting a number of things that are going to happen on the other side, the flip side. In 2023, we have seen a number of startups. Actually, a huge percentage of startups which have been invested in have collapsed. We have seen a lot of countries, the countries that have the biggest funding, from Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. Some of them are having issues when it comes to economic trends in those countries. And what is going to happen, besides the tech startups, we are going to see that fintechs might be able to suffer a little bit because they are directly correlation to how the finances of those countries and economics is going to be. So that for me is going to feel a hitch. So we might be able to find a lot of startups also collapsing. I'm not predicting doom, but that is likely to be the little trend. But what I'm also seeing that the future of it is that the spaces, the biggest investment in terms of tech is going to be going into FMCG and also the fintech space. So in my own assumption is that the future of 2024 is that we are going to increase a lot of funding. And I'll be able to say any investment that is coming into this is going to look at the social aspects of it, mostly social impact. You have seen a lot of investment into agriculture. You have seen a lot of investment going to medical, and that is pharmaceutical level. That is a lot of it going there. And we are also be able to see another one going to energy. That's basically renewable energy and climate change. So if you see those ones are the trends for this year, then it looks like a lot of startups are going to focus on social impact projects are going to be the biggest beneficiaries in investment and even growth.